Welcome to another Inside Track podcast from Digital DJ Tips here on the Digital DJ Tips podcast. It's the first one of our new year, having had a summer break. So thank you very much for being patient and hanging on for the first of what will hopefully be 10 months of great content and coverage. As always, we've got questions here and we've got issues raised by our community, our students here at the school, which we'll be covering. And the three issues we're covering today are, number one, the three things that we would really like the DJ industry to finally nail in the coming year. Some big topics in there. Number two, why we love boutique companies, why we love indie developers, why we love the smaller one-man bands, the small companies, the people who are filling in the gaps between the things the big companies do in our industry. And I will name check many and tell you why you should be checking them out as well. And finally, is it worth buying, investing in a PA system as a DJ? After all, we like to make loud noises. Is it a good idea to own your own way of making what you do very loud indeed? That is the final topic coming up, recorded as ever live in front of an audience of Digital DJ Tips students. So thank you to everyone who took part today. Let's get straight to it. So the first topic we're covering today is three things that the DJ industry, in our view, really has to get right, and hopefully sooner rather than later. This topic really came up because when the Digital DJ Tips studio has been closed over the summer, we've had a little bit more time to keep an eye on what's going on out there, outside of our little ecosystem, maybe outside of our little groups and in the wider DJ world. And there's things that come up again and again that just came into focus. So I thought I'd gather a few of them up. And as we start a new academic year here at the end of August, beginning of September 2026, these are the three things we're rooting for you, DJ industry. We really want you to get these three things right. So let's get started on what they are. After this, we're going to move on to two more topics that we're covering today. So it's a real feature-packed DJ geeky chat, getting really into the weeds of the hobby of DJing. Right, so number one, we want to see the DJ industry finally crack seamless cloud libraries for our music. So what do I mean here? We're not talking about logging into Spotify or Apple Music to stream all your favorite tracks into your DJ software or hardware, wonderful though that is. No, we're talking about the ability that when you as a serious DJ have spent many years, if not decades, building and curating and trimming and preparing and nurturing a music library, a collection of music, why the hell should you keep that music on one computer or on one drive in one place, needing to back it up, no ability to access it anywhere else, no ability to just access it in the club or at work or whatever? It doesn't make sense. All of our lives are securely online nowadays. If you are privacy and safety conscious and risk averse, then you can do it in ways which are a little bit more let's just say resilient than other ways. But if you are 99% of the population, you're just getting on with it, trusting someone else to look after it. Either way, your music, the stuff you own, should be available to you wherever you need it without you having to remember to effectively take it with you, either on a drive or on a laptop. We just think it should. Now, Algorithms DJAY software is getting close and has done for years, not because it's particularly brilliant, but just because it jumps on the back of Apple Music. Now, Apple Music does something quite clever. It kind of combines your local music library, the stuff you actually own, with its streaming Apple Music kind of thing. It's a bit confusing, but nonetheless, you can have kind of access to everything in one place via their platform, and it works pretty well if you're not gonna look in too much detail. It's like if you read the labels on the back of your food, if you're that kind of person, there's things about Apple Music and the way it handles your local music you might not like, but if you just gobble it down, then it actually does quite a good job. I've already drawn the distinction between people who are privacy and risk averse, privacy conscious and risk averse compared to everything else. If you're the everything else, Apple Music gets close, and DJ kind of jumps on the back of it. But the problem there is that it doesn't really work very well with things like cue points and loops and stuff you do to your music. And so while it can handle your versions of things and edits you've made and all that kind of stuff, really you don't have this seamless access to the work you've done on that music as a DJ in every place. So there's definitely some things that are not ideal in Algorithms DJ's way forward in this area. Now, Pioneer DJ, Alpha Theta, have a system called Rekordbox, loved and hated in probably equal measure by professional DJs. It's certainly the dominant platform for professional DJs because it's the one they export their USB drives with. Old school, right? You have a laptop at home, you export your music onto a USB stick and you plug it into the gear when you get to the club. Now, they have for several years tried to make that optional and they're getting close. Of course, they control a big part of the hardware market, so they can build these features into their hardware, which gives them a great advantage. So in theory, you can log into your own music collection using their hardware, their high-end hardware today. You can do it now and access your music over the cloud. And of course, as the internet becomes like lighting and heating and, you know, fresh air, it's just everywhere. Ethernet in DJ booths and stuff, it's only going to move in that direction more. As that starts to become the norm, then look, it's not the internet connection to your DJ booth that's the problem. In this case, it's how bloody awful the software is, because honestly, the cloud library features in Rekordbox are not good. They're not intuitive, they're clunky, they're unreliable, they're unfathomable, frankly. I gave up. I made a video a few months ago where I just really wanted to make a video showing you guys and girls how to do it, and I just couldn't because in all consciousness, I couldn't support it. It was so bad. Now, they know it, and they're building hardware that is meant to work with this. So you'd hope that they're putting a lot of resource into getting that right. I think they've got the best chance to get there first and produce the first seamless cloud library for DJs that just works. Just works. Remember those two words, because we're going to come on to them again in the next two things that I think the DJ industry has to get right. Virtual DJ, it works pretty well with Dropbox. It doesn't charge you a subscription for that, which is good, but it's not a complete solution yet. And Serato and Traktor, there's just nothing. So look, this is one area I want to see people getting right. Now, the second area that I really, again, there's promise here, we're getting there. The second area I want to see them make big strides in is beat grids. Now, beat grids are a fantastic thing in theory. Beat grids are where the software analyzes where the beats and bars are in your music, so you don't have to worry about it. Why? Because it means you can hit sync, you can hit echo, you can hit any function like looping that requires knowledge of that without you actually having to have that knowledge, because it's already built into the music file, it's already there. And the problem with beat gridding is really, if you're an old school DJ like me, you used to DJing on vinyl, you know, you don't have beat grids. You can't press a sync button on vinyl. So we just got on with it. We just learned to manually beat match. We learned to adjust our music as we were going. So we hate beat grids. We hate having to do this extra thing because we're used to grabbing new music, giving it a quick listen, and heading to the gig. So anything that gets in between that workflow that feels great, we're very resistant to. We don't like sitting down with our eyes staring into a laptop, putting little lines on music files to get the beat grids to work and stuff. So while we love sync, most DJs love sync, especially old school DJs, it makes life easier. We just wish we wouldn't have to do all that pesky beat gridding stuff first. New DJs, they've kind of grown up with this stuff, and learning manual beat mixing is optional, and therefore beat grids are the thing that aren't optional. Beat grids are essential, but the problem is then again, they're not perfect yet. So those DJs, they're happy to do it because, well, maybe not happy to do it, but there's no option unless they want to learn manual beat mixing. So it's the lesser of two evils. Okay, we're going to beat grid our music because we can rely on it when we don't have to manually beat mix it, right? But both sets of DJs then, it's not perfect for at the moment. So where are we at? Well, Algorithms DJ is 99% there. They've got something called fluid beat grids, which are very, very good. There are even people, and we're going to move on to talk about boutique DJ companies, about in indie DJ companies. There's even one company that now allows you to take Algorithms beat grids and push them into other software because they're that good. Right, so if you use Algorithms DJ software, you're pretty much there, and you know that you can almost completely set and forget. How great is that? But that's one of the smaller DJ platforms. So Virtual DJ is getting close as well. But Serato, Traktor, Rekordbox, well, Serato's and Traktor's, you can just about do it, but it's very fiddly. It takes a long time. Rekordbox, Yeah, it's not perfect. It asks you questions that you can't really answer unless you're a pretty experienced DJ. Like, do you want to do this fixed or dynamic? Well, I don't bloody know. I don't know. You tell me. You're meant to be making this easy for me. So it just isn't quite there yet. And so no cigar to any of those companies either. So look, I just want to see everyone get this right. I just want to see, add your music, it knows where the grids are. AI should help with that. This is a good version, a good use of AI. And the final thing that I'd like to encourage the industry to put even more effort into is usable real-time stems. Stems, again, being the way you separate vocals, bass, drums, and melody instantly, like instant acapellas, instant drum tracks, instant instrumentals, and so on. So why? Because they're everywhere now. No one dares launch a piece of DJ gear without that instrument acapella button, or without the low, mid, and high EQs also being bass, melody, and vocals, and without pads that will let you turn stems on and off, and so on. They just are really good. They can change the way you DJ. It means you don't have to search for or make your own acapellas and so on. They're really good. However, even though the quality of them is getting really pretty good now as well, it's not easy to do. And the processor power that's required to do this is challenging for developers, software developers. And so what we end up with really is a compromise. And the compromise is you can either analyze your music, and then it's almost as if you're just playing from an acapella or from a drum track or so on in your DJ software, or you can throw caution to the wind and let it kind of do it as you're going along. But the problem there is that especially the standalone systems, the most up-to-date standalone system we've tested is the Engine DJ powered Rain System 1. It's not usable. It takes probably, I don't know, half the time that it would take to play the song to analyze the stems. So by the time the stems are ready, the song's half finished, if not further. So look, you really haven't got that option on standalone gear, even on software. Some software can do it pretty quickly, obviously depending on whether you've got a good computer, but other software, it won't even give you some of the options. It's, Rekordbox won't let you analyze ahead of time in the software so that it's fast, for instance. You have to just take your chance on the moment when you press those buttons. I just want to see, this is going to come hand in hand with faster processors, with better technology. As technology jumps on, hopefully this will jump on as well, but it's not quite there yet. And the thing is, stems are becoming a very important way we DJ. The big difference between our Transitions Toolbox mixing course that we launched this year and our Mixing Power Skills, the first mixing course we launched, which we look back on to compare the two when we launched the new one, is stems. Stems is probably involved in, I don't know, a quarter, a third of the things we teach now. They're just such a great way of adding creativity to your DJing. So we want to see some extra stuff going on there as well. So let's have a look at what you think about this. What is your thoughts on these things that I've been chatting about now? Well, the Ruckus has helpfully pointed out in our live chat that in Rekordbox, the two ways of analysing your music are actually quite simple. You just hit fixed if it's modern music, or you hit dynamic for anything that isn't quite so modern. Yeah, but it should be able to figure that out for itself now. That's the point I'm making. This stuff is not really as intuitive as it should be. Charlie says, from your mouth to God's ear. Oh, well, I'm glad you're enjoying my suggestions here. They're not really mine. I'm just kind of like condensing what we're hearing our users and the wider DJ world talking about. Benedict says, I'd just love to be able to record my old vinyl into my PC, then put that into my software and it just work. There's a lot of stuff involved in doing a really good job of recording old vinyl into digital music. We have got whole tutorials on it, including in our all access pass. But, as we always say, the best thing to do, if possible, is just buy a pristine digital version of music, even though you might own the record, because you're going to get better options there. Rob says, any thoughts on the new ability to export directly to Pioneer USB using and I'm going to paraphrase here, using non-Pioneer software? Well, yes, I think it's great. This one library, Lexicon can do it. Virtual DJ's actually been able to do it for quite a long time. I think it's good, and we will have another look at this stuff as we see it develop. let us move on then to the second topic that we've got today, which is why we need boutique DJ companies, why we need indie developers, why we need an ecosystem, an underground bubbling away beneath some of the bigger companies that I've mentioned already today. Actually, I've mentioned a couple of them today already. So Digital DJ Tips is a boutique indie company, right? We've been here for 16 years, but we're a small company. We've got a handful of people working here, and we've always liked it that way. Ultimately, what we work in is a very small niche. You know, people do moan about, oh, why isn't DJ software as good as, you know, video editing software or photo software or production software, and why not this and why not that, and why does everything move so slowly, etc., etc. But the truth is, our game is a small one. You know, it really, really is. And so it's not the case that you get major, massive companies in this industry. You just don't. Even the biggest companies are very small compared to, you know, the industries I just mentioned. It just is. And so, look, boutique companies are important for that reason alone. It's a small industry, and therefore companies are going to be smaller. And so it's not really surprising that we find lots and lots of companies that are either one-man bands or just very small companies where everyone knows everyone else. We actually quite like that. We always have, and we like to support this kind of company. But let's look a little bit deeper into why we like supporting boutique and indie companies. I want to actually name a few companies here. I think it's probably easier for me to just shout out a few names. It gives me a chance to give a big up to some of the companies that we love and just talk to you one by one why, so you get a better picture. So just a few, literally by going through my inbox, looking at the people I've been talking to, looking at the people who've been keeping me in touch with what they've been doing over the summer when they've been working, when I've had my feet up. Mix, M-I-X-X-X, that's the first one I want to talk about. Now, they are an open source DJ platform. They are on Mac, they're on Windows, they're also on Linux. Of course, Linux, the biggest operating system that you probably haven't heard of, which is also open source. Why is it? And they're on their 25th birthday. 25th birthday. Why? Why is this worth mentioning? Loads of reasons. Mix democratizes DJing because it's free. Not only that, it runs on Linux, which is a free platform. We've covered all this before. That makes it a really cost-effective way of getting into DJing if you haven't got the money to pay the subscriptions, to go into the closed ecosystems, to jump through all the hoops that the others make you do. Now, I'm not saying it's for everyone. It probably, in fact, it definitely isn't. But what a brilliant thing to have that option. So absolute huge shout out to Mix. On the same kind of vibe, we've got Tau. Now, Tau is a piece of DJ software by a friend of mine called Gabor Santo. Now, Gabor is someone I haven't covered for years actually, but I've always kept an eye on what he does. Tau, T-A-U, is for Mac and Windows. Again, you should go check it out. It's just a piece of software that is immensely powerful, very nicely programmed, and it gets you into the DJ ecosystem really at a level that maybe is more accessible than going all in with some of the big platforms. And by the way, while we're talking about easy, accessible DJ software, you should check out, if you haven't already, a platform called UDJ, Y-O-U-D-J. Now, UDJ is a browser-based piece of DJ software. If you've seen Beatport DJ, so Beatport, the download platform, also has a DJ platform that you can log into and play your Beatport music on. It's a bit of a gimmick, really. I haven't heard them mention it for a long time. I guess it's still there, but that's actually powered by this platform. So there's another reason why boutique and indie developers are a good thing, because they come up with ideas and some of them get snapped up and used, maybe for good, maybe not for good, by the bigger companies. They are where the innovation often starts. So UDJ, Y-O-U-D-J, you can find that by just Googling it, is a good little web app to play with as well. So there you go. There's some DJ software that we like that we don't talk about enough maybe. Now let's talk about some of the hardware. You might sometimes see in the background on our Digital DJ Tips videos some little portable battery speakers by a company called Minirig. We've always pushed this company. They're handmade, they sound wonderful, they're really reliable, they last forever. But the reason we like Minirig more than anything else is that they've continued to produce portable Bluetooth battery speakers that you can also plug into your DJ gear with a wire, and they will sound exactly as they should sound, i.e. no latency at all. Now, the problem here is that the DJ speakers that people try and use, like JBL and Bose and all those companies that have kind of, beer can speakers that are Bluetooth, that are multi-unit, where you can press a button on the top and pair them all together like people like to do. All these speakers, even when you can put a wire in, there's still latency. That makes them no good for manual beat mixing. That makes them really annoying for DJs that don't like that stuff. Ultimately, if you want to hear the sound the second you do something on your DJ gear, you need zero latency speakers. Minirig is the only company I can reliably tell you makes speakers that still do that. So another reason why boutique and indie companies are good is that when things move against us, remember, we're a small niche. Hardly any products are designed for DJs specifically, apart from some of the big companies, obviously, that we talk about all the time. But look, the stuff around the speakers and so on, you're going to have to use what's out there. And when the advent of DSPs, which make little speakers sound good, and the button that turns 2, 3, 4, 5 of these little speakers into a party mode, the advent of that killed zero latency with a wire. Some companies are still doing it in that format, and the only one I know, again, that I can rely on is Minirig. So kudos to Minirig. I want to talk again about another company in that kind of area called Dillinger. Now, Dillinger invented something called SCAR, S-K-A-A, and SCAR is a wireless protocol that's very low latency, like 19 milliseconds in pro mode. Now, 19 milliseconds is good enough. And this is good because it's built into third-party speakers. So, for instance, you might have heard of Soundbox, S-O-U-N-D-B-O-K-S, another company we like, by the way, who make really big, powerful speakers, which work with Bluetooth. You can plug your wired stuff into them, but they have this thing called SCAR built in. Now, Dillinger make this SCAR protocol. They invented it. You get a little box that you charge up with USB, and it lasts a long time. You just plug it into the output of your DJ controller or mixer, and it will link to Soundbox speakers and give you this 19 milliseconds over like 50 meters. It's guaranteed 19 milliseconds. It doesn't get worse when you go further away or anything, of really high quality sound. And so you can have Soundbox, but not only Soundbox, Dillinger make their own PA system called Death from Above and Death from Below. We've reviewed them recently. Other companies, Electrotech, make a really nice PA system called Sound One, which also has this technology built in. So SCAR Wireless is everything Bluetooth should be. Again, for DJs, right? DJs lap this stuff up, and it's available to any company that wants to license it. It's not tied to one company. So while you can also get something similar with Alpha Theta Pioneer DJ, they've only built it into a bit of their gear. They've only built it into one speaker. There's no subwoofers that use it. So look, this is something that if you like the idea of wireless, you're going to want to look into. Again, it's a small company that's come up with it. Just 2 or 3 other companies then I'd like to mention. DJCU, the DJ conversion utility, Mixmaster G, he's here. He's been tirelessly hammering away at making it easy to move your collection between all the major DJ software platforms for years if you're a Mac user. He only works on Mac. One-man band, fantastic. You can always talk to him. He will help you. He helped our tutor Jazzy Jeff out of the goodness of his heart for hours and hours, sort his library out when he was having issues with another way of doing this. So, there's just one example of why boutique companies are good. The customer support can be so much better. They have the ability to deal with real pain points that the bigger companies just aren't keen to deal with or don't want to go near. What company wants to give away all the stuff that its software can do to every other software company? So these companies fill in the gaps. Boutique companies, boutique mixers. There's a wireless company called Union Audio that we've reviewed a few rotary mixers from. There are also companies that have hardware effects and so on that you can just add to your boutique setups that you're building for yourself, your little setups that are different to everyone else's. I'm going to be reviewing a Menorah, is the name of the company, MD Effects suite of hardware effects that are just something special, something different, reverbs and echoes and so on. But again, it's small companies that are making this stuff. And of course, you only have to go to some of the shows that highlight this stuff, especially here in Europe, in Berlin and so on, where you can see, most of the companies doing this stuff. And in music production, it's huge as well. Are very small companies. We love it. And also, I want to mention just 2 more, mainly because we are going to be looking at their products, hopefully very soon. 2 more companies that have come to our attention recently. You buy a DJ controller like a Pioneer DJ, DDJ 400 or an Alpha Theta Flex 4. These are small units, right? They are designed to plug into your laptop and work with software. But there are companies saying, no, what if we could just have a way of them not working with your laptop and software? Well, a couple of them have come to our attention recently. One of them is called Stembox. Now, Stembox is a solution out of France, I believe, where you can basically plug your USB drive that's meant to be plugged into Pro DJ gear in the Pro booth. And you can use that USB drive on a screen that looks like you're using a Pro setup, but on a tiny little DJ controller. And there's kind of a build your own version of that called Stembox, called Deck Shark. Stembox was the first one I mentioned. And Deck Shark is a little bit more geeky, but essentially it's coming at this from the same angle. And that, funnily enough, is a fork of Mix, the open source software we talked about earlier. So these companies can sprout other things as well. So look, I just spent 10 minutes going through all the companies on our radar that I could think of in the 10 minutes before going live today, but there's many more that are doing great things. The way I look at it is this. You know, there's a fable or a story that's often told. It's used for various things, where you have a jar, you put rocks in, then you put pebbles in, and then you put sand in, right? And it represents, you know, it's quite often used when people talk about how to spend your time. You know, do the rocks first, because they're the big things, then do the pebbles, the smaller things, and the sand, the finessing, can be the last thing you put in. But I'm going to use it for a slightly different to tell a slightly different story here. Imagine the DJ world is a big jar, right? You need the big hitters, you need the big software makers, you need the big hardware makers. They're the rocks. They kind of take most of the market, but they're also necessary for us to have the stuff that we need to do this thing. But all the companies I've just mentioned, they're the pebbles, they're the stones, they're the stuff that you put in next that fill the DJ world up with what it needs even more, that go from the 70 or 80% to the 95% of the stuff that we want, the stuff that we need, the stuff we dream of, the stuff we want to use. Often we invent it ourselves because no one else has done it, right? And so at that point, we're ready to fill that jar all the way up. And whether your version of the fable says, oh, well, you pour sand into the top or you pour water into the top, it doesn't matter. The sand and the water or whatever it is you use to fill that jar with everything we want in DJing, that's you and me. That's us. That's us hacking the stuff together that everyone else has made for us to make it do exactly what we want. That is the stuff that the manufacturers sometimes like, sometimes really don't like, sometimes cannot understand. Well, we made it perfect. Why are you doing something different with it? But without that kind of hacking, we wouldn't have had Acid House, because no one would have messed with that really horrible bassline machine that Roland made to make that Acid House sound, to give the absolute classic example, right? So look, the point here is that as DJs, it's up to us to hack and use. We shouldn't feel that we're not allowed to really use whatever we've got to do whatever we want, whatever we envisage. Often it's the things it wasn't intended to do that are the most exciting. So never forget that you've got that power and you should be using it. But look, these boutique, these indie companies are getting a lot closer to what I just talked about than the big companies, because they're driven by shareholders, they're driven by investors, they're driven by, we need to market the hell out of this stuff and get it out there, and then we have to move on. You know, the boutique companies fill in all the gaps, and then we hopefully can fill in the rest. Hooray for the hackers, says Sebastian. Great analogy, says Charlie in the live comments as well. Mixmaster G, you're very welcome. And oh, Mateus, thank you very much. Welcome back, says Mateus. I've been working a late shift, but I will be catching up later on. And I have a question. I have something to maybe inspire you with future content. The challenge of performing open air as a mobile DJ. Yes, it's a great question. There's loads of things in performing open air you just don't think of. Not least, can I actually see my screen, but also keeping equipment cool, getting the internet to work and so on. Yeah, it's a great idea. We will certainly have a look at that. And actually wireless technology can be your friend there. If you're interested in some of this technology, especially the wireless stuff, I actually did a demo of a couple of those wireless PA systems over the summer, and you can see me on the famous Digital DJ Tips balcony. Famous because back in lockdown we did a lot of live streaming from there, demoing a couple of the Scar PA systems there, so go take a look at that. And a couple of you saying yes, Mix MIXXX, we've used it, it was good. And Tom says you hit the nail on the head with that analogy there. Innovation from smaller independent independent companies is stuff that the big players ultimately end up incorporating into their platforms, or don't, and that's fine. You know, maybe smaller companies can take risks and it doesn't always have to work. All right then, the third and final topic I wanted to talk about today is a purely practical one. This again has come out of the chat over the summer, and actually it was the chat around the 3 reviews we did of PA systems, big reviews of PA systems that literally have been stacking up in my hallway at home. My family are like, what is this gear? In fact, my brother-in-law and his family came over to stay when we weren't at home over the summer, and I was quite embarrassed by the pile of PA systems in my hallway, and I have thankfully got them all out of there and into our lockup now because I got the chance to finally review them and get them out from under my feet, literally. Anyway, go check out those reviews. They are the Electrotech Stage 1. Stage 1, it's called the Stage 1, not the Sound 1. The Electrotech Stage 1, the Death from Above and Death from Below from Dillinger, and the Mackie Thump Pro Go, which is their or is it just called Mackie Thump Go? I think it's called Pro Go, which is their battery-powered subwoofer and PA system. They're all very interesting, so go check those out. Anyway, what came out from that was people saying, well, should I buy one? And it's an interesting question because, look, we don't need PA systems as DJs. It's not like you start DJing, you need a laptop and a controller, or you need a standalone unit, you need some headphones, you need something to play the music out loud on, and that's it. And then you need to just get some music, right? And start learning. However, a PA system is a useful thing to have. In the intro notes for this segment, I mentioned the fact that, you know, in the days when everyone had a band, it was often the case that the drummer got the gig, not because they were a particularly good drummer, but because they had a car, because you needed the car to carry the drums around. And that meant that the rest of the band could slip their guitars in there as well, squeeze in the back seat and get a lift to the gig, right? So look, that's the first thing I want to talk about. A PA system is your ticket to gigs. If gigs are what you want, owning a PA system can be a great way to get them, because ultimately the music's got to be loud, and if you can offer loud music and someone to play it, i.e. you're more likely to get gigs than if you can't, right? So just owning a PA system can open doors for you, and it can also make you money if you rent the PA system out. There's another idea there, but look, you don't need to do that stuff. You could just own a PA system for the kicks. You know, it's great to be able to pump out loud music. Of course, there are downsides to it. It costs quite a lot to buy a good PA system. You've got to store the damn thing, as I just mentioned, and also audio quality. Let me just quickly mention audio quality, because PA systems tend to be made to throw the audio a long way. And so just imagine someone stood next to you shouting in your ear. That's going to be quite painful. That's what a PA system does. If you turn a PA system down, it's like someone making the shouty noises but quieter, as opposed to a hi-fi system, which talks, it whispers, it enunciates. It's really good close-up. So monitor speakers, hi-fi, indoor audio is more refined. PA systems, in order to push their music a long way, tend to have compromises made that make them a little bit harsher to listen to close up. Not all of them, and it's always worth listening first to see what you think, but generally if you're really close to a PA system, even on low volume, it just doesn't sound as good as speakers that are designed for short throw, monitor speakers, DJ monitors, hi-fi speakers and that kind of thing. So that's worth bearing in mind. Now, that said, if you do think, no, I want a PA system, I like the idea of being able to just play in my garden or play for kicks or go and play out because I get more gigs because I know people will book me. Or actually, I quite like the idea of renting one out every now and then when I'm not using it. You can use the same PA system at home and for gigs if you buy a small enough one. So if you buy a small PA system, and my colleague at Digital DJ Tips, Steve, had one set up from Dave. It was a Dave PA from LD Systems, I think. Just a small version of their PA system for a long time in his studio. If you do that, then it will also work for small gigs. So you can take the PA system out of your studio, chuck it in the back of your car, it's only small, and it'll work for 20, 30 people or whatever, you know, bars, pubs and so on. Eats Everything, who is a DJ in the UK, actually swears by producing music on a PA system. I think he's got a Mackie system or something similar set up in his house, just because he says, look, my music's going to be played on a PA system, so I want to make it on a PA so I can hear what it sounds like. Now that's a bit extreme, but look, there's an element of that as well. If you've got a big enough space at home, why not? You know, if you've got a garage, if you've got a basement and you can put some soundproofing in, put a PA in there, set up your DJ gear. I mean, that's a dream, right? Hi-fi speakers don't really work so well in those environments. So only you know whether that could work for you. I think my advice here is that get something small, because something big, really, unless you own a castle, is not really going to work here. And the other reason I would give you that advice is it's always better to rent, to hire a PA system for a bigger gig, even if you own one. There's no point pushing a small system too hard, thinking I'm going to penny pinch. Just put your fee up a bit and rent a really big beefy system instead. So, you know, owning a system, using it for small gigs, but renting the equipment when you've got a bigger gig is probably a good compromise. But look, another reason is that some of the PA systems are just really cool nowadays. You know, there are great batteries built into PA systems, even subwoofers nowadays. As I mentioned earlier, low latency wireless is now a thing. And some of the manufacturing techniques are such that you can get very lightweight systems. So if weight is an issue, if you want something that's just easy to cart around, you know, I've reviewed systems from JBL, from Mackie, the Mackie Thump. Look, these are big companies. These companies can use really up to the minute manufacturing techniques to custom mold things in plastic and so on that sound really good but don't weigh anything. And in that instance, they've got the edge on the old-fashioned, you know, hammering together, screwing together wooden cabinets and sticking corners on them and stuff, you know. So it is the case, just as with lighting, that there's a lot of innovation that's gone on in PA that means while you maybe would never have considered buying one in the past, it might be worth looking at it again now. So for most people, probably not. For most people, well, all people, it's definitely not a top priority, but I certainly wouldn't advise against buying a PA system at some point. I always have one close at hand. It's just in the airing cupboard now because I've got quite a small one rather than sat with 4 other PAs in my doorway, making it quite hard to get in and out of the house. Don't make that mistake. Families don't like it. So that's where we're going to leave it for today. Again, thank you very much to our students, not only for providing the suggestions for questions and being so involved in the recording, it makes it much more fun, but also for making the whole thing possible, because this podcast is 100% funded, as is the whole Digital DJ Tips School, by our students. If you like what you hear, head over to digitaldjtips.com and become a subscriber. And if you'd like to have a question featured on one of our podcasts, then all of our course owners get the chance to do just that. Hit the reply button to any of our live show reminders inside your private student group and share with me what you want help with. Of course, if you're not a course owner, digitaldjtips.com will tell you all about how to become our latest student. Meanwhile, for me, Phil, here in the studio, get good, get out there, make the moments. Until next time, bye-bye.